Well, the United States wanted to block China's access to the world's most advanced microchips. But guess what? It looks like this strategy has completely backfired. And instead of containing China, US sanctions are now forcing China to become more creative. The Chinese government is using an incredible strategy to break through and survive the US sanctions. What I'm about to share with you will come as a major shock to many Americans. But first, let's start at the beginning. When Joe Biden came to office in 2021, many thought he would improve the US economy by ending the trade. Where Donald Trump started against China in 2018, logically, it makes sense. The US economy is completely reliant on importing Chinese goods. Despite everything you hear about decoupling from China last year, the United States actually increased its imports from China by 6%, importing a staggering $564 billion worth of Chinese products. But despite our economic dependence on China, US politicians have become obsessed with trying to contain China instead of investing in a brighter future for America. I honestly don't understand this way of thinking. The United States has an unbelievable pool of talent inside this country, and we continue to welcome immigrants from around the world. We should be leading the world in developing microchips. But the domestic microchip industry is facing severe challenges that could last for decades to come. Look at this recent article from Bloomberg entitled "Chip Industry Sees Labor Shortages Threatening U.S. Expansion Plan." The article opens with a scary statement. For Americans who think the U.S. is going to dominate this industry, the semiconductor industry warned that there won't be enough engineers, computer scientists, and technicians in the U.S. to support a rapid expansion this decade, threatening efforts to boost the domestic chip economy. Here is the surprising prediction from the Semiconductor Industry Association. Over the next decade, U.S. chipmakers are on course to add an additional 115,000 jobs by 2030, but producing enough chip experts? This graph from Bloomberg shows the graduation rates for technicians, engineers, and computer scientists are far below the demand. Based on current degree completion rates, 58% of those new jobs would remain unfilled. What's worse, a shortage of qualified workers in the U.S. is already starting to affect current semiconductor projects. TSMC is the world's largest producer of semiconductors and, many would argue, the most important company on the planet, given its role in producing the world's most advanced microchips. It was huge news for the United States when TSMC announced plans to build a new production facility in Arizona. The Arizona plant would make older generation chips, as the world's most advanced chips would still be manufactured in Taiwan. As you can imagine, the news of TSMC expanding to the United States was seen as a major win for U.S. politicians in their efforts to contain the rise of China. But even that plan is starting to experience problems as the Arizona facility is now behind schedule and delayed until 2025, for a lack of skilled workers and expenses running much higher than Taiwan are. U.S. politicians don't realize the skill of building advanced semiconductors have been refined to only a few places on Earth, predominantly in Taiwan and Korea. It's not as easy as constructing a new factory in Arizona and starting a production line. The process of assembling the world's most advanced microchips is one of the most complicated manufacturing processes in the planet, and many U.S. politicians don't realize. The revenue generated by selling microchips to China is the key driver of the revenue needed for continued research and development for most of America's biggest microchip companies. In fact, just last month, the CEOs of America's top 3 microchip companies, Intel, Nvidia, and Qualcomm, met with Biden officials to discuss the future of the microchip industry in America. These 3 microchip executives had one simple message for Joe Biden: if the U.S. government restricts and blocks, the United States has a massive need for uranium. The U.S. is the largest consumer of civilian uranium, and around 60 million Americans get their energy and power from nuclear sources. Simply put, if the United States doesn't have access to uranium, 1/5 of the country can't function. Number 2, traction uranium is at the beginning of its exploration phase and is about to begin its biggest ever drilling program. This represents the ideal time to start investing in these smaller mining companies. Because you want to get in before they announce the drilling results at the time of this recording. The stock is trading at around 23 cents a share with a market cap of around 24 million Canadian dollars, which represents a very good entry point as the company is expected to announce drilling results either later this month or sometime in September. Number 3. Traction Uranium is drilling in the best uranium jurisdiction on the entire planet. The Athabasca region in Saskatchewan is home to 10 of the 15 highest-grade uranium projects in the world, with about 20 times the international purity average. What's incredible is that Canada is a major player in the uranium space and 15.5% of the world's uranium is sourced from this one specific region in Canada. Number 4. Traction Uranium has a world-class technical advisor and geologist who is leading their team now. Dr. Bone Tan has been exploring uranium with various Canadian mining companies for over 50 years and was instrumental in discovering another key uranium deposit in this exact region in Canada. And the fifth and final reason is that I love discovering companies that are owned by smart money. And incredibly, about 80% of the shares of Traction Uranium are owned by owners, employees, and institutions. The founders and strategic partners have a lot riding on this. Sprite Capital, one of the most successful precious metal investing companies, owns about 30% of the shares of Traction Uranium. Once again, I can't stress how important uranium is to the future of our world. As I mentioned earlier in the video, nearly 20% of the United States power comes directly from uranium-powered nuclear reactors. And look at a country like France, which produces over 70% of its energy from nuclear sources. Finally, if we look at which nation is leading the world in the construction of new nuclear power plants, once again it's China has a commanding lead, and this even stresses the need for the US to tighten up its supply chain and guarantee its supply of world-class uranium. I think Traction Uranium has a great opportunity to serve this exact interest. But once again, as I always recommend, please do your own due diligence before investing in any stock. To help you with that, I will include the website, stock ticker, and investor presentation in the description below so that you can do more of your own research. Everyone, as always, thank you for your incredible support, and I look forward to seeing you all in our next video soon.